You ready?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Oops.
I said whenever you're ready.
All right, well, good evening. This is the August 12th MAU meeting. Even though on the web it says 8:14, it's really it's the 12th of August today. And we have what I would call an abbreviated agenda. We just need to take a little bit of business before the fall school year and the fall sports season starts, and we needed to officially approve the bid proposal. So we have an executive session planned for the end. I did actually approve these field trips after our last meeting, so they are not for June 2014. As Ken pointed out, he thought they were planning ahead. So I just wanted everyone to know that. The revised consent agenda has an additional resignation and an additional nomination for a coach, I think.
Yes.
So the rest is the same, the agenda is the same. So we're going to open the meeting by, I had mentioned before we started that Zeke will be leaving. He has his replacement with him. So I'm going to ask for us to introduce ourselves as we go around so people know who we are. So would you like to start?
Sure. I'm Nathaniel Durfee, I'm the student representative.
And he's a senior.
Yep.
Already.
David Durfee, I am from Shaftesbury.
Edward Turnoff from Bennington.
Dave Fredrickson from Bennington.
Ken Schwartz, Bennington.
Sean Ray Oler from Bennington, and Bennington doesn't always sit together.
Catherine McClure, Superintendent of Schools, please stand.
Frank Kinney, Shaftesbury.
Nathan Wallison from North Bennington.
Tim Hobart, Powell.
Nelson Brown, El Pano.
Jim Marsden, Director of Facilities for Mount Anthony.
Sue McGuire, High School Principal.
Tim Payne, Middle School Principal.
And we have a citizen.
Lori Mulhern, citizen.
Thank you. And so the first item on our agenda tonight is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Lori?
Just had a question, actually two. One of them is regarding the request for proposal procedure. I know on the agenda, it just happened to say we looked at this, and I wasn't sure who we was, and I thought maybe somebody, I wasn't sure, is it the whole board, or is it a subcommittee? I wasn't sure, it wasn't really clear. The second question I had is regarding staffing for the middle school. I'm not sure where we are with that. I know that there's been a lot of staff movement, and I just wanted to put it to Tim because he's captive audience here, and I thought I'd ask him, how are we doing? Do we have people?
I'm not going to have him answer your question right now.
Okay.
It is part of the board reports under principals.
Okay, that's
Tim
fine.
And Sue will let us know where we are with staffing.
Okay.
And your first question, I'm not sure I understood it. An RFP is a request for proposal,
Right.
and if it's over 15,000, it gets published in a couple newspapers, and the request for proposal is available. Sometimes it's actually sent to places, if it's insurance or if it's paving, and then. So I'm not quite sure when you say we, I'm not.
Well, attached to the agenda was the information about the paving, and what it said is that we recommend, and I'm trying to figure out who the we is. Is it the facilities subcommittee?
So we'll get to that
Yeah,
item.
that's all.
Well,
Just
you know,
curious
you
who
have
he
a
was.
really good point, because I actually looked at it a couple months ago, and I'm going to ask Catherine to take note that,
I already did.
first of all, that proposal coming from that particular department often doesn't have a date, so it would be helpful to have a date, and it is written for somebody in the finance department, and then it is recommended to the board. So usually it would be if it was recommended from the finance department, that would be Rick and probably Jim in the paving. In that particular thing, I don't think so. It really depends on what the RFP is for.
Okay,
Thank you
it just
for
wasn't clear, so I just didn't know if there was, because I know we have a few different subcommittees, and I just didn't know if it was from one of those.
Typically, that would have gone through finance during the school year.
Okay.
And then it probably would have been recommended from, Jim Marsden and or
Okay.
two, and Jim Marsden can tell us about it.
I did also want to make the same comment that you made, Shamri, is that some of the documents attached did not have dates, like a resignation letter, neither a date on it or a date received. And just formality, but I just thought I'd throw that in there since you happen to mention it. It usually does. Thank you.
So we have no presentation tonight, and I did not see in my last look the treasurer's report posted. I just looked this morning, I don't know if it was posted. So we're actually going to skip over that, and we're going to go right to the MAUHS, which is, it's actually the bid for the middle school. Jim, would you just like to give us a brief update without having us walk outside to see the heavy equipment?
That's the best way to see it. For a period of time, we have known that that entranceway is in need of some repair, and as time went by, when the road was always a little too narrow there for 2 school buses passing in opposite directions, there also was some drainage issue there, and we actually had not intended to put the entrance road there at all on this project when it was built, but in the middle of things, we were required to move it 100 feet or so to the south, and therefore had to put the corners in it to get it back into the project. But with all that being said, we started in, I think February was the first meeting to look at it in cold conditions, and then as we progressed in March and April, looking at the pitch and the blacktop breaking up, and the top layer was sliding on the bottom layer and breaking off, and the shoulders were breaking off because vehicles, when they met, they had to pull over. So we were seeing more and more problems. The project was engineered and designed and did go to bid. We structured it so that it could be either bid in its entirety by one general contractor, or it could be bid site work and paving, 2 different ways to bid it. And we received it. It went to Works in Progress. It went to the Albany-Troy area. I believe it went to the Rutland area for advertising. Went out to Bennington. There were 4 or 5 contractors. Several of them bid site work only. One gentleman from the Albany area bid site work and blacktop separately, and one contractor bid the project in its entirety. And after the bids were opened and reviewed and the numbers were crunched, we came up with the Bodwin Paving Company, and they were the one that had bid the project in its entirety. Their site contractor was part of their bid, and it was clearly the bid that we wanted. It was the best money, and we got started last Saturday grinding the blacktop off. We're going to reuse the material that was there and roll it into subsurface material. We're widening the road. There's some drainage changes. There's drain inlets that are being re-leveled and reset. The lighting controls at the intersection are being redone and repositioned, and we met early last week, and there clearly was, it's a little tricky because some of it is ours and some of it is the town's. And the site contractor went back to the highway superintendent, and they visited, and the town agreed that in order to tie the project together and get all of the paving that needed doing, we'd do it all at one time, and they would separate out that particular piece of work and bill the town, and our project would stay as is. We have noticed, we knew there were some unknowns along the concrete walk. We weren't sure whether there was a clay issue there, and as you go to the south side where we're widening it, we weren't sure what we were going to find for fill once we got into undisturbed soil that had not been worked on when we built the building. Today we did find a few problems. There is some extra fill that we had to put in. It's minor as far as the project is concerned.
Tim?
Just a reminder to the board that this was part of the budget. This was not something that was added to the budget during the summer. Those of you that did the tour and things were appraised of it. I mean, actually, I can't remember if we walked down there or if I walked down there to see what the problem was. And the cost, as I understand it, Jim, we had put in 60,000 and it's going to come out to be 70, but you have the funds to make that difference up.
Yes, at this point, it looks as though it will still be under 70.
But the money is there. You don't have to look for other sources of income to be able to support that.
Thank you, Tim and Jim. I'm going to let Ed ask his question, but for those who have not been on this board through the design and building phase of the middle school, what Jim Marsden was referring to is the original site design had the entrance being actually where you drove, not that far up, but up. The whole building was turned around, but because of the Ag Soil and Act 250, the building was flipped so that the parking lot is over there and the fill went back there. So that was just sort of a history of
Okay,
what happened.
that was part of my question.
Okay, Ed, go ahead.
Second question, it also is also part of history. Was this not designed properly to begin with, or did the clerk of the works sign off on it when it wasn't constructed properly?
There was never an issue with the way it was constructed. It was just unknowns during construction that we ran into much deeper clay than had been anticipated, and there never was any fault with the design. Is fine. The construction was outstanding.
And is it 8-10 years? When did we start this project?
We actually started in 2001, and the first shovel was 2002, and we occupied in August of 2004. So it's you're going on 9 years.
And we got a very good deal on it. If you went to build this building today, it would be considerably more expensive than it was.
So I would imagine the buses had an impact in the way it came up that piece, and then we sold that piece down the hill to the state for the bypass. So I think in the planning originally, we knew the bypass was going to go through, and the idea was to have the design, and the architects had the driveway on the other side. So it was mandated, as you might say, for us to kind of flip it around. So thank you, Jim. That was very thorough. And I do believe the we, and looking at this from a month ago, is Rick's department with, I would imagine, with Jim. So, any other questions? So we need a formal action to approve the bid. Tim?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the bid. Jim, I've forgotten the name of the outfit.
Bodwin paving.
Of what town?
I believe they're in Bennington.
Bennington.
They're close to Shakespeare.
I'll second that motion.
And for Richard, who will have this information, the bid that was taken was 62010, and that was made by Tim and seconded by Nelson. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, Jim. The consent agenda, the amended consent agenda, Richard will make sure, as I'm looking in here, because he'll watch this, that you will get it.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tim and Fran, are there any questions on the assistance to the principals, the coaches? I know either Sue, you can, Ken had a question about about replacing a special ed assistant, which we can do under your report.
Or I can just answer it quick now.
Okay.
I'm not gonna replace it with an assistant principal. We're gonna have 2 head teachers instead that have divided responsibilities. Pardon? For special ed.
Are they on this list?
No, because it's SVSU.
Okay.
And it's pending SLSU appointment.
athletic director.
Ed,
What is a head teacher?
It's a department head,
Okay,
of the head of social studies or English.
understood.
any other questions on the consent agenda? All in favor? It's unanimous. Moving on to the principal's reports.
About hiring, we have one more tutor to hire. We have interviews set up for a week from today. And everybody else is hired. Busy getting ready for the beginning of school. I don't have anything really. Oh, I do have, Nathaniel, do you know who is who? Would you please pass those on? Tim Brown had asked me to pass these out. Actually, it's a pass for all the athletic events coming up, which is nice. And it's the newest athletic and activities report that Tim does every year. And I was just gonna, for Tim, highlight just a few things to take a look at in here. The participation numbers in high school clubs and both high school and middle school athletics was up this past year, even though we have declining student enrollment. The attendance and the gate money were down from home varsity games in which we charged admission, down about $6,000 from $48,000 to $42,000. Tim said that some of that could be attributed to the tough seasons that varsity football and basketball had. Perhaps the state of the economy too had an effect. The cost per participant for a student athlete to play on a sports team averaged out to $305. And a breakdown for each sports team is in this digest if you take a look at it. For the first time, the high school and the middle school added the warning periods as part of the academic eligibility. So the high school had 8 different times we looked at grades to see if students were eligible. The middle school had 6 different times. And initially in October, there was a real spike in ineligible kids, especially at the middle school. But as word got out and they knew we were checking for grades, it proved to be very successful in keeping kids from allowing their grades to slip. So it was very successful. The honor roll percentage of athletes went from 58% last year to 61%. So that was good. And lastly, the wrestling team captured its 7th New England title this past winter and 26th state title in a row, with the cheerleaders capturing its first state title since 1987. So the school's now won 88 state titles since 1967. And the girls' teams have accounted for 22 of those titles after winning just 1 in the first 16 years. And all of that is broken down in this report, if you want to look at the details. So that's a report that Tim asked me to do. I don't know if you have any questions.
Dave has a question.
Well, on Tim's wish list here, I wish we could do something to protect our coaches from what I refer to as out-of-control parents.
Well, we are talking about that. We did refer back to policy after you brought it up at the last meeting. And we talked it over with Leon and found where in the policy we can do that. I think it's a matter of putting teeth into that policy and figuring out how to do that. You know, and it might be that we end up coming back to the board with you telling us this and hopefully get the backing for that.
Tim?
Sue, just a question on the scheduling. Did the program, it slips my mind, that the program that you use for scheduling, did that
Infinite
all-
Campus?
Yeah, Infinite Campus. Did that work well? I mean, are we all set?
Scheduling's all done.
Scheduling's
I mean, we
all
do a
done?
lot of that by hand, even though it's, they say just throw it in.
Okay.
Because you
And
have
what-
to try to get every kid to get most of what they've asked for.
And how do we train somebody to use that Infinite Campus program? Are they trained,
Yeah, they're,
but do we send them away? Are they trained in-house?
initially we did. Initially, there was a lot of training. Yeah, I don't think training's a problem at this point. I think it's just to figure out the kind of the different quirks of the actual program and make it fit into what our school needs are.
Right,
Because of course, it's a program for the different schools in the whole United States,
right.
and each school's a little different.
My question really is just, you know, should we be considering other programs, or do you feel that this program does as good a job as any other program would do in terms of the scheduling?
That's hard to answer because I don't know what the other programs do. I know what we wish, different things that this program on reports to make, and that we
Right.
wish it would do a little better, but it doesn't mean the other ones would do it better.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with enough programs, but I feel like we're making it work and it's okay. The
So you don't think
scheduling
we
is
should make an
going
effort to
well.
look into other programs?
I mean, I don't know.
I have Dave and then Nelson, but I will say, Tim, my experience over the last many number of years listening to board members and administrators is the program itself is able to do a lot more than it actually does right now or did a year or two ago. And I think that's being looked at because when we were sold this system many years ago, it had many bells and whistles that I'm not sure we utilized to the fullest. And so, since this has come up a number of times, I do know from the SU level and the software level that Frank Barnes has heard this from a number of different areas.
Although
So-
there are things, we can call them directly, and there are times we call and they say, no, can't do, it doesn't do that.
Okay.
So I think it might be some of that, but it's also some of it, it's only built to do certain things.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it's what we had wanted it to do, you know?
Dave?
So I see we clarified or updated the dress code, and that seems great. I would hope everybody, all of the staff would buy into it so that everybody enforces it the same.
Yeah,
It's
what
tough.
we did, Dave, is, it's really hard to have everybody do it because some of it appears to be more judgment call and it shouldn't be. So what we've decided as a whole school community is ultimately Dave Barrio, the Dean of Students, makes the ultimate decision. Now, there's certain things you know for sure, no, that's not appropriate. But sometimes, I gotta tell you, I look and I think, yeah, that doesn't look appropriate to me, but I'll ask Dave and he'll go, but it follows the dress code. Maybe it doesn't look that great, but it follows the dress code. So we thought it was much better to have a bottom line person that makes those decisions, and then it isn't a judgment call, which isn't fair to do. So Dave's the keeper of the dress code.
But if, let's say that someone gets to the last period of the day and you kind of question their outfit and they say, well, geez, it was fine with all my other
Well,
folks.
we do ask the teachers to call us right away.
All right.
They call down, we'll come up, we'll take a look. You can't believe how many students come down and say, so-and-so wanted me to check if this was appropriate. We spend a lot of time, probably way too much time on that. But we wanted to get that out before students shopped, and so we didn't hear, well, you should have told us. That's why that was in the
But
beginning.
I think the headline was something about not buying pajamas, right? Anyway.
Slippers.
Slippers. Nelson?
Yeah, I'm back to the software question. Usually what I find is that new versions of software are put out at different times, and what really is helpful to them is if you make like a wish list of the items you'd like to see that program, and communicate that directly with them through some means,
Yeah.
because you'll find as they update the software,
They
you might get what
that,
you want.
yeah.
But you
That's a good
gotta,
point.
but you have to sort of get it in print to them somehow, because they, like most people, the moment they'll
If it's
answer your
not
question,
there,
then it's gone.
Yeah.
And then, any other board members, and Fran, and then Lori.
Who's going to be the leader of the pack up here to make that decision? Tim?
I have been called to ask about, or to make a judgment on dress code, but I share that with my associate principals. We haven't designated a point person.
Okay. And what do you do with the parents that come in and insist that's all they have and that's what they're going to wear?
Oh, we have really nice looking t-shirts in our drawers.
Okay.
And when they see those,
I know
they
you get that every
go,
once
no.
in a while.
Yeah, we both have a pile of them.
Okay.
It's like
Lori?
that restaurant you need the sports coat with.
Doesn't go over well, but
I just had a question for Sue, and I don't know if you can answer it or not, but hearing, you happen to mention how much it usually costs a student to participate in sports, and it's over $300 or something like that. I was just wondering, do we have I'm not familiar, but do we have anything in place for those students who may wish to participate?
No,
but
it doesn't
may lack
cost the students, that's what it costs the district.
The district 300? Okay,
Yeah,
I
it
wasn't
doesn't
sure.
cost the student
I know
anything.
a lot of students that have more
Yeah.
sports equipment than,
Yeah,
I mean, they've got duffel bags
Yeah.
full. And I see they buy the pads, the knee, you know, the
Right.
shin guards, the cleats,
Yeah.
the helmets. and I
no
was just
student is
wondering-
excluded, and you'd be surprised how many items we sometimes buy for students like that.
I was just wondering.
Yep.
So
Good
what,
question.
just, you don't have the report in front of you, but what Tim Brown does, and I think it is online.
It is, I have
You, what he does is he takes, like football, for instance, is a more, if you look at individually, it's a more expensive sport, really because of a lot of the equipment. And so what he's doing is taking what's in the budget that's budgeted for all of the sports, all for the whole year, and then averaging it out so that you have an idea that what it costs overall for that number of participants.
But football is not the most expensive.
Which one is?
If you read that, I believe baseball is.
Baseball? Okay, so there you go. See, I'm spreading rumors.
Check it out.
Some are more costly than others. Mr. Payne?
A question that was asked earlier. Last summer was my first summer at the district. It was filled with opportunities as I had the chance to hire several new staff members. If that was opportunities, then I have a basket full of them this year. A number of retirements, and we've already interviewed folks and put candidates forward for superintendent's approval in music and in applied tech, which is now the sustainability position, and now I draw a blank. And then we also had an opportunity in June and July to interview for a special education position. This is the one that will be the On Point, which is a continuation of what the high school offers, and it connects with the program on Congress Street. And so we've been able to do that, and literacy, 2 literacy teachers, as I had a resignation, and Maria Lanou moved over to the library for us, so that was an opportunity as well. And then I anticipate, if folks take a look at the agenda tonight, there are reassignments under the middle school. You'll see a number of special education folks, which may be the question then as to where everybody will end up. We have 2 teachers who will be joining us from other schools here, and I still have a position that is now posted on School Spring that will be filling before the start of the school year. So there's 4 new special education folks in the building. I've been working very closely with Wendy, who is the new interim Director of Student Services. She's been fantastic, helping us kind of figure out our teacher needs as well as our paraprofessional needs, because we do have to hire paraprofessionals as well. There's a limited number of those, but one for the On Point position and then an additional one at least inside the building. And I have a Quantum Leap academic tutoring position that is now open because my tutor took a position at the newly instituted independent school in North Bennington. So we are busily posting on School Spring, collecting resumes, scheduling interviews, and going through the process. And so I anticipate coming back in the September meeting for this board with plenty of nomination forms hopefully completed for folks to review.
Physical education is still looking.
Thank you, sir. Physical education as well. I have a candidate in place, and he promises to be here, so that's good.
In fact, well, I won't go there. Go ahead. That's it. I have a question, or it's actually a question and a comment. I know you weren't here last meeting, and one of the things that came up was the new agricultural sustainability course. And so if you read through the minutes after what Richard Bump called lengthy discussion, Dave Durfee and Leon made a motion to basically accept the position, and then we accepted the consent agenda. But noting that we would like to see a more detailed analysis of that program, and not now, but just scheduled for either the Ed committee and then the full board, or just the full board if you.
Would love that opportunity,
Okay.
working closely with the farm to school folks who have connections to the ag committee, which serves this committee as well, but we should, if it's your direction to start an ag committee, we'd be glad to do that.
I'd just like to say that that position is getting a lot of attention throughout the state. And at the farm to school conference, it was noted, and there's a lot of jealousy out there because this is something that is a field that is timely for the sustainability, and because you're using a certified science teacher to teach it. So I think it's good that the board is asking for more detail about the curriculum and how the position will fit in to the offerings here, but it's a terrific opportunity, and I've had many people stop me to let me know how notable it's been throughout the state. So we're all looking forward to hearing more about it.
Fran?
Is that anything that could be coordinated with the CDC also?
Absolutely.
Because
There's
I'm
actually
hoping
a
that you
plan.
keep in touch with Jim Tolkien, so that'd be good.
There's actually a plan to do that.
Excellent, okay, good.
I think in one of Tim's earlier memos, you actually mentioned that, or maybe one of Nathan's reports, but I think that's one of the reasons it actually, I mean, I think the idea, I mean, we're talking about this going on maybe 3 years, the association with the tech center on the fields and the agriculture up here. So I don't know, I'm sure the next ag committee could update us on where that's at, but I know it's part of the plan. Right, Nathan?
Please.
Any other questions for Tim? Jim, since you're here, you want to let us know what's happening at the high school? We see what's happening at the middle school.
Oh my goodness.
You did want to leave time.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, we can do that in September. You can tell us what had been done as opposed to what is being done.
Tomorrow, we're doing both buildings, safety walkthrough inspection with the town, which we do annually before we reoccupy in the fall. Last week, we finished up what's known as TQP, which is all the testing of every individual fire alarm device in both schools. We've finished all the flow testing on the sprinkler systems in both schools. We're winding down summer cleaning. It's gone relatively well. We did have a couple of weeks of very hot, humid weather where you couldn't get wax to dry. We had 20 fans running in certain parts of the school and we couldn't get wax to dry. We are working with the town. We had a water bill. The town remotely reads your water meters, and we had an April, May, June water reading at the high school, which was much higher than normal, and we've been doing sounding tests on water lines and all kinds of things, thinking that there may have been a leak that we hadn't located. At this point, as of today, we think that just in going through the building and checking every faucet and every water appliance that takes water in any way, shape, or form, cooling coils for evaporators, everything that we could think of. We found small drips in certain places, and believe it or not, those small drips add up to a fair amount of water. We also did identify what we think may be an issue in early spring, and we'll look at that a little later. But we've done somewhat of a remodel of the dark room. There was a processing sink here at the middle school that was never utilized, and our faculty person at the high school was just wild about getting that sink into use. So we moved it from the middle school to the high school, and we have that all plumbed in. And we've redone some of the darkroom. I don't think that darkroom had been redone since 1967 when the school was built. But we're also building somewhat of a new entrance to the main office. I think that's the most noticeable change. as you come in to go to the main entrance now, you will actually see a main entrance. And there will be a receptionist there, a switchboard operator, and we'll also be able to have a human eyeball on the front entrance, which will make a difference security-wise. So that's part of the summer.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Daniel?
I don't have anything, really. I think sports are starting up this week. I know soccer is. I think a lot of sports have been practicing over the summer, but it officially starts this week. That's about it.
You looking forward to school starting?
Because he's a senior, he doesn't want to.
But you know what? We start after Labor Day this year.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I mean, that's, you know, that's only the second year in a row. So, I didn't like going back to school. So we're going to move on to the superintendent and the chair's report. And there will be, there was a press release released today, a meeting that Ken, myself, Catherine, and some of the folks from the Bennington Select Board that we met, and I'm going to let Catherine talk a little bit about how this came about
And the CDC.
And the CDC, sorry.
This came about from discussions that have been occurring over the last year in what is called the Economic Strategic Planning for Bennington, which is really an economic strategic planning process that has an impact outside of Bennington, and it really is a regional, has a regional impact. And while the focus is on Bennington, it was felt from the consultants working with the town on the strategic plan and those economic partners that started to work with the plan specifically, that better communication between the, well, I say better, but then let me rephrase that after I explain that it's communication between the Bennington Select Board and the school boards that directly serve Bennington. So that would be the SVSU, the MAU boards, CDC boards, and Bennington boards. So that is how the invitation came to us. And the reason I hesitated on the better, they say improved communication in the press releases and discussions, but the fact of the matter is there is no formalized way or formalization either in statute or practice for all these boards to communicate together. So what we're doing is really opening communication to see if there is a way that we can begin a formalized process of meeting and discussing like needs. We're talking with the Bennington board specifically about having the selectmen board representatives from there come to the retreat with me, plan that for a short discussion about how communication with Bennington board and budget planning can happen. So it's really part of a greater economic strategic plan, which I will email to all of your MAU board members. You'll read about it in the press release. There are many, many goals. Initially, over a year ago when the discussions started, both Ken and Jean-Marie were part of that original task group to start the work, and I have been serving on that committee since it became formalized as economic partners. The select board has accepted the strategic plan. There are educational goals which we have accepted in that plan, which include improving the graduation rate and then particularly looking at mathematics as an area where there's a lot of work being done very positively at the high school in encouraging students and giving students the skills to try more difficult level courses in mathematics, which has a direct result on career aspiration. So that's part of this economic strategic plan. We also have many employees at the various schools that are sitting on subcommittees. Katie Schonbeck from the high school is on the educational subcommittee, as is, I believe it's Amy
Amy Beth Ketcher and Brooke. Brooke
Brooke
is
the
involved.
Brooke Remington has been going, yes. And the work that Brooke has been doing in conjunction also with the CDC, but within the program that she is responsible for coordinating for field study and internships is really remarkable. It's expanded. She and Jennifer Wells have also tried to link these experiences to the senior project, which you've heard about over the years, over the last year, which also has had a great impact. So there's a lot going on that's very, very, very positive, and we'll be talking more and more with the media about developments from this economic strategic planning. So I will send you the report that was accepted by the select board here in Bennington.
Thank you.
And any ideas that you have, you should email Sean Marie, and Ken is on for Bennington School Board, but you're welcome to copy him as well.
Catherine, Donna has been
Yes, Donna.
sitting in this seat for the last year, and one of the presentations we did have was from Katie, or was that at the SU? Was that here?
This year.
Thank you. That was, it went, and it had to do, I think, with Common Core as well. So I think she came to that date.
Question, Catherine, we were talking about getting out the good news and such. We've had one meeting, is there anything planned on that, or
Yeah.
what?
We've had one meeting of an advisory for public relations. Dave serves on it. We had one meeting, and then we had some events in the supervisory union that took time away from some of the administrators, including myself, for that. But I do plan to pull that group back together. We have continued working on the products, so to speak, from that meeting. If you've been following, we'll be starting them up again as school begins, but in the spring we had on the inside front page every Saturday of the banner, there was a photograph of a student engaged in their instruction, either with a teacher or by themselves or with other students, and the caption under that is "Futures, all of us learning together." That was in week after week after week, and that'll start up again as school starts. We also have had Marissa Mahar working with Barbara Ackerman on brochures that we had discussed at that meeting, so we want to bring the committee back so they can see these brochures. The Woodford brochure is finished, and you will see that perhaps as an insert in the Bennington banner soon, because they also are looking for students from district to district tuition, and they're using that brochure for that. So we have followed up. We also followed up by meeting twice with Kevin Murphy of the hospital about looking at surveys, perception surveys, or surveys that would help us identify our audience so that we could target our media better, and so there'll be more information about that. So yes, and I will get back on that.
Thanks, Dave. I want to read you a quote from here so you're not surprised tomorrow. One of the things in the press release, and you never know what the press will pick up from a press release, talks about the select board working with the boards during the budget process. So Tim, who's chair of the budget committee, what Joe Krozik's quote is in here is that many times voters ask me about the school system and I don't have enough information to give them a good answer. I'm hoping the collaboration improves communication for all entities involved. So one of the things the select board would like to know, especially impacting the Bennington budget or taxes, is what the school might be planning if there was, some big project coming up. They'd like to know ahead of time so that everybody is aware of what the impact might be. Just briefly, there was some discussion about bringing in the outlying districts, but I'm not sure where that's at. I think the focus for right now was the Bennington community in terms of the businesses and the Bennington town selectmen. So.
With recognition of impact, the region.
So, so that We, as a board, are not planning on meeting until the third Wednesday in September. We have given Catherine permission to hire, intent to hire, so those couple that are left will be intent to hire till they get to the board, I believe. And the other coaches' nominations will also have to wait for our final approval. SVSU meets on the 28th of this month, which is that first week that staff are back on the 26th, and then school officially starts September 3rd.
Yeah, I have
Sure.
Yeah. So I was just going to say that not everyone is starting after Labor Day. The principals, principals, although they've been at work all through the summer, had their formal opening of their retreat, Administrative Leadership Summit, as we're calling it this year, today and tomorrow. The teachers return on August 26th, which is a Monday, and they have a full week of professional development. Our opening exercises for the academic year with the teachers and support staff and administrators is the morning of August 26th, and you're invited to come to that opening. We'll be hopefully confirming very soon challenges from the business and industry sector in the area, challenges to students to do some problem solving for the businesses or problems that the businesses would like to challenge the students and their teachers. And then we're confirming also a use of social media for the staff because we're really seeing a lot more use of it, and it's important to review what's appropriate and boundaries as well as instructional uses. So we're planning a session on that as well. And this year will take place in the blue seats. We're returning to the blue seats.
Not the middle school.
Not the middle school.
Nathan, did you have your hand up?
No.
So we're under other, Fran?
Okay, I've been saying it, it's got a question first.
You can
Okay.
finish.
At every meeting, I've been trying to get everybody to think about teacher negotiations, open teacher negotiations. And I think it's the way to go. I know we had Steve Stitzel at the last meeting. He didn't say it wouldn't work either. There are other school districts that have done it, and some have settled their contract in 2 or 3 days. So I think that's the way to roll. I think it ties the board's hands when you negotiate in good faith, and then they'll comment on something and the board can't seem to comment on it at all. So I'm going to make a motion to try to join up open teaching negotiations. It starts at the end of this year or beginning of next year. I know you're going to talk about it after anyway.
Yeah. Well, in terms of open negotiation, I'm not really sure. I mean, you've been in it, and I've been in it for a long time.
Yep.
And Steve Stitzel and anybody who has been in it knows that there are certain parts of the negotiation that we usually do by consensus, or we have a, when we go out and they go out, to discuss, you know, exactly where we are, to get the information so that we can make a proposal that really makes sense. And, I don't really know what we mean by open negotiations. I don't think the negotiations
I can explain that to you.
Well, can't really be successful unless each side has an opportunity to discuss with its members the proposal that you're going to put forward, and be sure that there is consensus. If you do it piecemeal or an open session, I have no problems with presenting the proposal to the other side in open session, but I think the configuration of that proposal really has to be done with those members of the team in a consensus way.
Number one, there's no reason why it won't work. We say it won't work. We don't know. We haven't tried it, so let's do it. Number one. Number two, I think that it would behoove us to lead this down the road to open negotiations, because they aren't going to do it. So, and my point has been all along, we put our cards on the table all the time, and we've never gone back on anything or in any part of that. I think if we need to change the way we do business. If we're not we're going to keep doing everything the same old, then you're going to get the same old, and you're going to get the stories and the half-truths and everything else. What I mean by open negotiation is we're sitting in a room facing each other. You've got the public there if they want to be there. They don't get to ask any questions. They get to observe, and observe only. They're not going to enter into negotiating anything. We're going to do that. I've even said I would be willing to assign someone else. In fact, I have a person that's sitting across me, which I would assign to, put a new team in there, and I suggest the teachers union do the same thing. Get rid of all that old baggage, and let's start over. I think it would show the towns that we're willing to change and get this thing settled.
Can I watch it on TV?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I want it televised, everything. Yeah, absolutely. That's what it should be. If you want the public to know what's going on, what better way, if the public likes to come there, now I don't know where it would be held, maybe at the high school, maybe here, I don't know, but it's got to be someplace if you have enough people from the public that they can observe. And again, they don't get to enter into any discussions. Now what Tim says, there are some issues, yeah, there's going to be times when this board will caucus or their board will caucus, and that doesn't have to be an open session. But when they're done caucusing, then you're going to come back out into that room where the public and the media is going to be, and you're going to hear what the offers are. That's all I want. I want it up front. No more of this nonsense with the iPods, the iPads, iPhones, whatever you want to call all this stuff, computers. Neither side gets to have this, with the exception of a business manager and the attorneys, if there are any. And that's, if you want to regain trust, and you really want to settle a contract, I think it would behoove us to do that.
So I'm going to Fran, I think I'm just going to point something out. Your language in terms of, I think if you're looking for collaboration and working together, your language is basically saying the opposite. You're saying that you want to do this because the other side did this, that, and the other thing, and that you want to show them. And I think that's not necessary. I'm just telling you your words.
Okay.
I'm just saying that your words are not necessarily welcoming to openness at the table. I just want to put that out there. Nelson?
Well, that duly noted then. I think that I'm going to make the motion unless Tim's got something else he wants to say.
There's two other hands up here, so
Okay.
Nelson?
Yeah, I think part of the, when you go to a table to negotiate, usually this group will have done some homework and have what they feel is their guidelines.
Mhm.
That's separate from what I would see as this open negotiation, because I assume the other side's going to do the same thing. Then you're going to meet and you're going to present what you feel is appropriate, and they're going to present what they feel is appropriate. Now, I think that's reasonable to have in the public, because that beginning point sometimes is variable based on the press, because there's a lot of negotiation that occurs, and by the time you get through, the press is not really reporting from the get-go. And I think we can do a better job of letting the public in on what goes on. But I still agree with Tim. I think there's some basic type homework and things we have to do before you make it public, because they're going to do that. And if you don't do that, you're at a disadvantage. Right? So anything that I guess I would agree to is I want to make sure we did our homework. We were able to present right from the get-go what we want and what we feel we want, and let them do the same and go somewhere. But we can't start from scratch and just step up and say, okay, let's start from here, because each of us at the table might have a different idea where to start right from the get-go.
And there are just a lot of questions that have to be done. For instance, when you're talking about language, well, often we've got to get back to the administration, to the principals or to other people, to lawyers, and get the wording and find out what impact that wording is going to have on the contract. I don't think I have a problem with letting people know what our proposal is, but I certainly wouldn't want to be in a position where I felt that we had to have our caucuses open.
I didn't say that. You weren't listening to me.
Well, I tried, that's why I wanted a definition
I
of
said
what
that
you meant by
before.
open.
If we had the caucus, that would not be an open session. I just got done saying that. But that's besides the point. My point being is, I want the board to lead this. We should be the ones to lead this, to go out into open session and do this. I realize, I'm very well aware that there's other things, yes, you're going to have to talk about before you go into open session. And again, I'll reiterate, you're not going to caucus in open session, whether it be the board or the teachers union. And my point is, and maybe I didn't use the right language, but I'm sick and tired of having all these rumors around, well, the board did this, the board did that, and then the board can't comment on anything. That's totally ridiculous. This last negotiations was a farce. I've never been through anything like that in my life, and Steve Stitchell admitted that. It was a big joke. And I think if we bring this forward, and again, both sides have to agree to do it. Isn't it just because we vote on it, let's say we vote on, yes, we want to do it, doesn't mean it's going to happen. I think we got to start the wheels turning here to change things. And if it gets voted down tonight, it gets voted down tonight. But I know CDC has voted for it, SVSU, Shasberry, and this is the last board I'm coming to, so if you don't want to do it, fine. But I think it shows a good faith effort to try to change the system, and it damn well needs to be changed. There's no doubt about it. And if I didn't use the right language, so be it. I think people have known what you actually want to do. You want to negotiate an open session, should be both sides. If they don't agree, then we don't do it anyway. But we should at least bring it forward to try to do this. And I think it's...
I'll let you make your motion, but I just want to say that Steve Stitzel is not here to either back up or agree with the fact that he thought it was a farce or a joke.
Well, he did.
He didn't think that last time, I mean, I find that very hard to believe. We accomplished
So I
a great
just don't
deal.
want room, I don't want you putting out things that somebody else said that may in turn be, you know.
Well, I
quoted
said it was
somewhere.
a joke and a farce.
Okay, well,
Okay.
fine, I can agree with that,
Okay,
but I
all
just
right.
don't want, we have enough trouble
Said
with,
it.
you said it. Okay, so Ken and then Fran can make us,
Just one thing, someone mentioned, if you would do this, there would have to be a lot of preparation. You have to have the administration to sit down with you and tell you what their main focus is.
Which they
You
do.
have to sit down and talk with the lawyer to make sure the consequences of your decisions are. But I would, not only what you're saying, Frank, what I would love to see is no lawyers, no NEA
That's
people,
right.
just head to head. Because you know what happens, it's just like when they talk in baseball. If Steve Burrows wasn't there, we would sign Ellsbury and Red Sox right away, but this lawyer wants to push because he's making a lot of money out of this deal as well. So he's
Yeah.
pushing. I think it's just the teachers and the board together with the council of the people there and behind us. If we have a big question, get administration, how would this affect us? And I think that would work much smoother.
Yeah, I just, one of the reasons, that you know, Ted, because you've been in on it, one of the areas, or one of the reasons that we've been able to settle these contracts is when the chief negotiator from their side and from our side get together and discuss what their impression is as to what the board wants and try to reach some consensus within their group. Then they bring that back to the actual negotiating team and they say, yeah, we'll go for it, or no, we won't go for it. But there are two important aspects of their responsibilities. One certainly is to be sure that the language that we have in any contract is what we really want it to be, that it'll express our concerns. We've run into problems in the past when we haven't had an attorney or somebody that's knowledgeable about the way those things should be written, and we find something in the contract that then we end up in all sorts of arbitration, and it's taken years really to put that contract into a form whereby both sides agree on what it says. And then we still have to go to arbitration, but it certainly was nothing like it used to be in the old days. I think that the board has to get involved, but I do think that those people that the negotiator for the association, the negotiator for our side, have been a great benefit in terms of bringing both sides together.
All right, Fran?
Well, I'll make the motion that this board enter in with open teacher negotiations at the end of this year, beginning of next year.
Is that the same language you used before? Because we don't have we don't have Richard Bump here, so I just want to make sure that what you're saying is what you said before.
Well, I don't know if that's what I said before, but I have the language printed and I didn't have a statement.
You have it with you?
I don't have it with me, but I'll get it.
Okay, well, did we do it at the last meeting? Okay.
Yes.
So if Richard can use your, so does everyone understand what
I'll make sure he
Fran's
has the
motion
paper.
is? To
The problem with the motion is that I don't really understand exactly what he means by an open negotiation.
That the next time when we do a contract, we go into open session with the public there, media there. I mean, the thing, it's real simple. I mean, I don't know how easier to explain it. I wish I had my little notes with me.
I'm actually going to look up the old minutes, but
Thank you.
I want, Dave has a comment, then Ed, then Nelson. But I'm going to look up SU's minutes while you're, go ahead, Dave.
Fran, maybe to help us better understand what exactly might be meant by open negotiations, according to Tim's question, and the point that in some cases negotiations are settled at the end when one person from each side get together and they go off by themselves and they hash things out and then come back and present their proposed agreement to the rest of the team. So is what you're envisioning a situation where that couldn't happen, where you couldn't have the head lawyer, the head association lawyer get together privately?
As Ken said, you know, if we don't have to have attorneys, that's all the better for us. But I would, to answer Tim's question, no. Either side, whoever has to caucus, because you know you're not going to do your caucusing in front of the people because you're going to be talking about certain things, maybe personnel or whatever. But to get your cards on the table, whatever you've decided, go out in open session. Here's what this side is offering, and then here's what the board side is offering. You just do it in open session. That's all. I realize everything's not going to be out there like this caucusing. If we do have attorneys and they need to talk about something behind closed doors, fine. But they're still going to have to come out and here's what we decided. We'll throw this idea out.
So I'm just going to, whatever is agreed upon, I think everybody, well, people may or may not know this, is that both parties, both sides, have to agree to the terms of, you have to come up with terms in terms of negotiating. So while you may propose something right now, or you may propose something right now, really it's the team at the table that will agree to the ground rules and what it's going to, how it's going to shape up. So I think you can vote on the concept of open negotiations, as Fran is what was said at that after Kinney again voiced his opinion that contract negotiations should be held in open session, and after Larry noted that there are no legal restrictions to doing this as long as both parties agreed, Kinney moved and Johnson seconded a motion to have upcoming teacher negotiations discussion held in open session, and the motion failed. 3 in favor: DeLucia, Johnson, Molyneux, Patterson, and opposed. I thought it passed.
It did pass. That's why I don't understand what those minutes are.
Molyneux also asked to have legal opinion on contract negotiations. All right, well, that was an interesting one to read, but that was the motion.
Need a second.
I'll second it.
So it's to, again, agree that contract negotiations should be held in open session.
In open session, basically.
So there's, Ed, did you have a further comment?
Sort of. I wanted to ask if what your intention is to have at least the proposals that are being made by each side made public, as along with the votes by the people that are.
Well, yeah, you have to know what the proposals are. I mean, each side is going to give their proposals.
Because a lot of times that is not public information until after the fact, and sometimes it's distorted in the news media.
Well,
So I can sort of agree to the concept of making proposal points public, especially if the media doesn't get it correct, which may or may not be the fault of the
and like I say, if either side's going to caucus, they're going to do that in another room or whatever, come back out and see what they've agreed to. But it's just an idea. Like I said, we probably won't even get there, but, you know, well, like I said, both sides have to agree to this, not just us.
These minutes are not right. It says in favor, 1, 2, 3, 4, opposed, Burnell, Bruce Hurley, and O'Connor abstained. So there were 4 in favor.
Yeah, and O'Connor voted for it the next time. We did a second meeting.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and a second. That was just, it was Fran and Nathan.
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor of a motion to try to,
I was going to ask the same question that was just stated. It's really the proposals that we're doing in the public. Here's our proposal, this is what we're offering. And we're going to say it in the public, and the same goes for them is what you're after. Because then you look at that, you might do a little bit of negotiation on the open right then, but then again, you might find, thank you for your proposal, we'll have to go away and do something. But it's putting the proposals out to the public so they understand what we're offering and what the other side is offering or asking for. Okay. If that's what it is, I'm ready to vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1, 2. Motion passed. So,
Thank you.
Ed?
We're still in open session, right? Is
Correct.
it- I have a question for the SVSU that came from an associate who has a lot of experience in special ed in another geographical area. And the question was, instead of putting some students in a residential setting at the cost of $300,000 a year, why can't we hire a special ed teacher, especially for that person, and avoid 2/3 of that cost?
We actually have one of the lowest, if not one of the lowest rates of residential placements, and we were actually commended for that in the focus monitoring. We have less than 2%. So we have very, very few students in residential because we have so many alternate programs here for students. So we do hire staff here. In fact, we've been modifying and improving the programs that we offer here, but that's in part why we're getting some negative passes, that we have many students that aren't in the mainstream because they're in these alternate programs. The other side of that is they're not in residential. So we have very few students.
No, I understand that, but for example, I think.
We do that, we do hire. We do exactly what you said.
And in fact, what dictates that is usually the student's IEP.
Right, the IEP team. So in some cases, we do what you're saying, but we have very, very few, and I can't say how many because it's so few that it would be identifiable. But we do exactly that. We hire teachers, staff, we offer alternate programs here, and there's very, very few students who end up in residential, and they're very severe cases. So.
Any others? So Tim, do you need a motion to go into executive session?
Very short.
Okay. Can you make it?
So moved.
For executive session for negotiations update. Richard, you got that? So he has that. Thank you, Dan. Motion to adjourn. Okay. Everyone in favor? Yes, that was a yes. Yes.